You are about to watch the incredible true story of the American Revolution, the war that birthed the United States of America and signaled a new era of global political transformation. By 1778, the conflict had reached a stalemate. In the North, the British military had failed to destroy George Washington's Continental Army despite years of sustained effort. This lack of progress forced a shift in strategy. Britain turned its attention to the southern colonies, planning to seize territory, re-establish crown authority, and mobilize local loyalists to dismantle the rebellion from within. To the British command, the southern pivot appeared to be the most efficient path to ending the war, targeting what they perceived as the rebellion's weakest flank. This map shows the invasion's starting point. In December 1778, British forces captured Savannah, Georgia, securing a major foothold. Moving up the coast to 1780, the British launched a massive offensive against Charleston, South Carolina. Thousands of troops encircled the city, cutting off escape. After weeks of heavy siege, Charleston surrendered. The loss of the city and its garrison stood as the most significant American military defeat of the entire conflict. Britain's strategy relied on the assumption that controlling major ports and urban centers would naturally lead to the submission of the surrounding population. However, this focus on urban occupation failed to account for the deep-seated resistance within the rural southern interior, where the British had very little actual control. Instead of restoring order, the British presence ignited a civil war. The conflict became deeply personal, turning neighbors against one another and splitting families across ideological lines. American militia units began a campaign of high-speed, localized strikes. They targeted British supply trains and loyalist outposts, making the southern countryside increasingly dangerous for the King's men. The momentum shifted in October 1780 at the Battle of Kings Mountain. There, a force of Patriot militia surrounded and wiped out a significant British loyalist detachment. The victory at Kings Mountain demonstrated that the British could not move through the South without facing organized, lethal resistance at every turn. Into this volatile environment stepped Nathaniel Greene, the commander appointed to salvage the American cause in the South. Greene adopted a logic of exhaustion. Avoiding large-scale confrontations, he used smaller units to draw the massive British army away from its bases. By keeping in constant movement, British supply lines stretched and thinned, growing weaker with every mile traveled. Greene had turned the war into a contest of endurance, using the vast geography of the South as a weapon to drain British manpower and morale. This strategy bore fruit in January 1781. At the Battle of Cowpens, American forces under Daniel Morgan delivered a crushing blow to the British, resulting over 800 casualties. Despite the loss, the British continued the chase. Greene led them on a grueling pursuit across the Carolinas, forcing the Redcoats to burn their own baggage just to keep pace. The two armies finally met in full at Guilford Courthouse. Greene's forces eventually withdrew, but the cost to the British was devastating. They lost nearly a quarter of their remaining men in a single afternoon. The British held the field, but they were now an army without resources. The campaign had become so expensive in both lives and money that it was nearing a point of total collapse. Guilford Courthouse was a victory that functioned like a defeat. It proved that tactical success on the battlefield could lead directly to strategic ruin if the cost of winning was too high. Exhausted and unable to secure the Carolinas, Commander Charles Cornwallis decided to move north into Virginia, hoping to find a more decisive theater of war. Cornwallis believed that by neutralizing Virginia, he could finally break the back of the rebellion. He was unaware that his movement had been anticipated. Waiting in Virginia was a combined force of American and French troops, supported by a powerful French fleet closing in on the Chesapeake Bay. Months of American manipulation had successfully funneled Cornwallis into this northern peninsula, leaving him in a geographical corner with no viable path for retreat. Cornwallis was marching toward a final confrontation that would settle the fate of the entire continent. He was marching toward Yorktown. To be continued in Episode 10, Yorktown, the Final Battle. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to History Stories Dose so you never miss the next chapter of history.